This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Let me just admit these people and get back to this. The meeting tonight is being recorded and broadcast by eMedia on Charter Channel 193 and live streaming on the webpage at easthamptonmedia.org. Counselors and participants in this meeting are gathered in hybrid on the order extended until March 2025, allowing us to do so. I remind both the members of the City Council and the public participating remotely to remain muted until recognized by the City Council President. Also, for the members of the public, please remove your camera for the duration of the meeting unless you are participating in the public speak or the public hearing. Thank you. This meeting is now called to order. Barbara.
Connie Denham. Here. Salem Derby.
Present.
J.B. Kaczynski.
Here.
Tom Peake.
Here.
Brad Riley.
There's no audio.
There, can you hear us now, Brad?
Yes, now I can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. We just called to order, so we're doing attendance here.
Brad, are you here?
I am here. Thank you.
Okay. Tamara Smith. Here. J.T. Terrell.
Here.
Owen Zarrett.
Here.
Okay, so tonight we have a special meeting, and it's an exciting meeting where we are going to get to introduce a new counselor. But before we do that, if anybody would like to speak in relation to this and to anything really, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Nathan Marquis. I live at 37 Holyoke Street. I'm not coming to you as a constituent today. I'm coming as the chair of the Easthampton Democratic City Committee. And I'm sure that everybody probably received the letter that I sent email a couple days ago, but I'm going to read it into public record now. To the members of the Easthampton City Council, we as members of the Executive Committee of the Easthampton Democratic Committee are writing this letter in support of the appointment of Felicia Jadzik to the vacant position on the Easthampton City Council. Ms. Jadzik resides in Precinct 2 and has expressed her desire to serve her neighbors and our community as City Councilor for Precinct 2. Ms. Jadzik has a history of community involvement and civic engagement, and she is eager to bring those skills, experiences, and passion for public service to this role. She is a small business owner of a consulting firm and has extensive experience in working in multiple and diverse groups of stakeholders. In her 20-plus years of professional experience, she has developed the ability to listen to and understand varying perspectives. We believe these skills will be beneficial to her role as City Councilor. Ms. Jadzik has been an active community advocate for her neighborhood and for Easthampton. She is a member of the Easthampton City Arts Coordinating Committee and is the chair of the Easthampton Cultural Council. Her leadership and efforts as a member of the Easthampton City Arts led to Easthampton hosting its first ever Porch Fest music festival located in the New City neighborhood in Precinct 2. This event was successful and doubled in size the second year. Through this work, she has built connections with neighbors and community members. This has given her insight into some of the dynamics within Precinct 2 and the city at large. We met with Felicia and we firmly believe that our priorities closely align with our values collectively. We share a vision of fostering a vibrant and equitable community, supporting sustainable development and ensuring transparent governance. We are confident that if Felicia Jadzik is appointed to the seat on the City Council, she will approach the role with the utmost commitment, integrity, and respect for the voices of her constituents. We believe that she will contribute in a meaningful ways as she serves on the city of Easthampton. As the chairperson of the Easthampton Democratic Committee, I submit this with full agreement and support of the members of the Easthampton Democratic Executive Committee. Sincerely, Nathan Marquis, Easthampton Democratic Committee chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else from the public like to make a statement? And if we don't have anybody here, if anybody online would like to make a statement, just raise your virtual hand. Or you can turn on your camera and I can recognize you that way. Seeing none. Okay, we will move on. So I think as far as an introduction of our candidate here, I think From us as the council, we're very appreciative that you stepped forward, and we're excited to have you here. And the next part of this is for you to make your statement. So if you would step to the podium. Be great, thank you.
All right, greetings, Easthampton City Council, and to the members of the public online and in person. My name is Felicia Jadzak. I use she, her pronouns. And as was stated, I am a resident of Easthampton's Precinct 2. I am very excited at the possibility and prospect of joining the City Council, and I look forward to serving with you and serving the constituents of Easthampton's Precinct 2, as well as the larger city at large. I am a small business owner. I have been running a workplace consulting firm for over 10 years now, and I have been long very much passionate about serving and being part of the neighborhoods and the communities that I live in. So everything that I do is around building relationships and forging those connections with people to make sure that we can work together to serve our community and our city for a better future. If elected and appointed to this position, what I'm looking forward to doing is to really focus on helping and being a voice in terms of guiding Easthampton into the future. We have a lot ahead of us, and there's a lot of uncertainty as well as a lot of opportunity. And I'm looking forward to being part of those conversations with you all. Thank you.
Great. So do any counselors have any questions for Ms. Jadzak? Yeah, Councilor Denham.
Good to see you. I have the pleasure of chatting with you a few times, and you've been participating in the Municipal Academy, which has been really great. So you're also kind of seeing the city and meeting residents and whatnot. So I guess my question is, Precinct 2 is our most diverse neighborhood or precinct. It's racially and ethnically diverse. It's economically diverse. There are businesses in that district. There are residential areas in that district, residential neighborhoods in that district. So I guess my question to you is, what are the things that you'll be doing to be able to outreach and to get input from folks, and really working to get feedback from the community so that we can best address the needs of that precinct?
Absolutely. I think that, first of all, I've already made a lot of connections living as a resident there. So I'm going to be trading on those relationships and those connections that already exist. But as you mentioned, it is very diverse. There are businesses, there are parts of what a lot of people consider to be main area of Easthampton. There's also neighborhoods, and there's neighborhoods that are not always considered when thinking about some of our larger activities and focuses. And so what I'm hoping to do, knowing that this is an appointment that I am stepping into big shoes to fill of Homar Gomez, and that this is something that will be for the next few months and not the next 2 years. Even with that limited amount of time to me, what I'm looking to do is to set up a weekly or regular cadence of community meetings where my thinking is it will be somewhere within Precinct 2, likely a business like, for example, Shelburne Falls Coffee Roasters, where I'll hold essentially open office hours. And so that way anyone who wants to can come connect with me. I'm also very online, and I have different social media accounts on Facebook and Instagram and whatnot. And I'll be continuing to hold those accounts and invite people to connect with me online as well, because I know that in person is not always feasible. Also, I have already been doing this, but I intend to continue to go to different events and openings. There's new businesses that are opening in Eastworks coming up in the next few months. There's all sorts of activities that are happening, and so I intend to be a very prominent figure and presence at some of those activities and community gatherings so that people can connect with me in person as well, especially if folks are not able to come to, for example, an open quote unquote office hour.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other counselors? Counselor Smith.
In your letter and in discussions that I've had with you, you talked about your commitment to the arts, and I just wanted to ask you, first of all, how the Porch series went, what you thought the best aspects of it were, and just explain what that was for anyone who doesn't know that particular event. And then in the future, in your plans as a city councilor, how would you consider the arts? Like, what do you mean by that statement?
Absolutely. So I'll start with Porch Fest. So or I should say, in 2024 was our second Porch Fest event that we held. It is essentially a grassroots organic music festival for anyone who's not familiar with it. The idea is that unlike a traditional concert where you would go to a venue that holds concerts and you would maybe pay or go somewhere where it's more of a business, this is around really meeting your neighbors and connecting with people who live in the same community as you may live. And so it's really about this blurring of public and private, where essentially the public is getting invited into what are traditionally more private spaces, such as a front porch, a back porch, a driveway, a backyard, things like that. So it was our second year. This past year, we were able to double in size, and we actually expanded into 2 neighborhoods. So the first year was just in the New City neighborhood, and we had 6 host locations and 12 performers. This past year, we doubled in size, and we were also able to have a presence in the Maple Street neighborhood as well. There's been a lot of excitement around that, and people are really loving it. And so what I personally have loved about this event and why I ended up initially wanting to bring it to Easthampton is for that exact reason of connecting with people in ways that aren't always available to us. It was actually inspired by cultural chaos. So when my husband and I moved here in 2021, on a Facebook post around the time of cultural chaos, somebody posted during the event and said, hey, this event is happening. I live 1 or 2 streets over. I'm playing music on my front porch, come on by. And that really inspired us and it inspired me to think, oh, this is exactly the kinds of connections that I'm interested in seeing, where it's not about setting up a date and a time to have an appointment. It's not about having a play date with your kids or running into someone while you're walking a dog. It's just about coming together and enjoying your community and enjoying your neighborhood and meeting your neighbors. On a personal level, having done this twice now, I have met a lot of neighbors who live next to me, near me, and on my daily walks, I'm constantly bumping into people. It's been really great in that regards because it also gives me, as I was saying earlier, that sort of foundation on which I've already made these connections within the community. And we've been hearing a lot of really positive feedback as far as people saying, this is so great, we didn't know that this person lived here or that this space was here, or I never met this person before or this musician. And there's been a lot of relationships that have been fostered out of that. Going to the second part of your question around how I intend to bring in the arts into my role on City Council, having been a member of the ECA for just over 2 years now, I've had a front row seat and an inside look into a lot of the dynamics around arts within Easthampton, some of the challenges and some of the opportunities that we have available to us. And so I think that I bring a really unique voice into that, where not saying that arts is not part of all of our interests and things that we want to support, but I really come from that sort of on the ground, having heard for example, from artists who were affected by the Cottage Street Studios change recently, having heard and worked with them over many months around how this is going to impact not only them at an individual level, but also the city. And so that's really what I'm interested in, serving as kind of this liaison between this community that I've been part of and being part of the conversations that you all at City Council level are having that are trickling down and impacting people in these spaces.
Great, thank you so much, appreciate it.
It looks like Councilor Riley. Go ahead, Councilor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. President. To that point from the last response, I did also want to take a moment to honor the work that Felicia has done in this area. So I first met her 2 years ago through the appointment process as chair of the appointments committee. And I've been able to see her actualize all of the things that she said that she wanted to do. And she's done them to the highest expectation that I thought would even be possible. I believed in her vision when we met, and to see what the concert series has become is just, it's been a joy to watch that. So I wanted to take that moment initially to honor the work that she did and to verify that she was very clear that this was something she wanted to accomplish, and she did accomplish it. To Felicia, first, I want to thank you for volunteering to serve in this capacity. In my opinion, there's no greater service than public service, and it takes a lot of guts and empathy and intellect to help run a city of 16,000 people, and it's not lost on me the endeavor that you're willing to undertake to serve your precinct. So I wanted to thank you for that. My question for you is really an attempt to rip the Band-Aid off of a pervasive issue in the way that city councilors, the mayor, and school committee members have historically communicated with each other in hopes that your career path may be a much needed salve for what ails us. Elected officials in Easthampton have a history of unfairly weaponizing social identity to attack the credibility and credentials of each other, or to use it as a shield to hide behind transparency and accountability. And simultaneously, there are very real issues where the government, like all governments across the country, simply doesn't serve every citizen in Easthampton in fair and equitable ways that it's supposed to. This behavior and this problem predates my time on the council, but I feel like over the last 3.5 years or so that it started to get worse. And I will say that last year we were able to welcome Councilor Smith back to the council with a sociologist perspective that I think is much needed, but being able to have someone with your professional experience, I think, is an additional opportunity for us to engage in these kinds of difficult conversations. So with all that contextualized, how would you use your professional experiences to help heal the dialogue across the government, so that way we can get back to serving the people of Easthampton and to see each other for who we are and to respect our identities and our cultures the way that we're supposed to?
Yes, I will start by saying it's not lost on me that, again, the shoes that I'm hopefully going to be filling are also big ones from an identity perspective. So Homar is leaving, and that's a big loss as far as what kinds of identities are represented on the council. My hope is, if I'm appointed, that I will help to alleviate some of those dynamics a little bit in terms of my own identities. And to your point, Councilor Riley, what I will say to the question around healing, without having been part of the city council, you don't know what you don't know until you get into it. So I don't know if I can fully answer that, but what I will say is that I do have, in my professional experience, a lot of experience with discussing both identities at a high level and having what some would call difficult, challenging, courageous, tricky conversations. So it's something I'm very used to. It's something that I have engaged with, especially over the last 5 years, with the rise of COVID and the murder of George Floyd and the great swell that came out of that in having some of these types of conversations. Now, the City Council as a whole is a unique organization, and my entering this will change some of those dynamics just by virtue of my presence alone. So I'm not entirely sure how I will impact until I get into this role. But what I will say is that in addition to Councilor Smith's really valuable experience as a sociologist, I can augment that through my experience having now over 15 years of experience as a DEI or a DEIB practitioner, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, for those who aren't familiar with that acronym. Having this deep experience around knowing how identities play with each other, knowing some of these deep systemic inequities that are at play through no one's choice, but just that this is the reality that we live in terms of this country, and understanding how that sometimes comes out into the discussions that we're having at these levels. The other thing I'll mention is that I'm also very cognizant that my role will also be to be a voice of representation, especially for those communities within Precinct 2 that may not necessarily have been historically represented or may not see themselves in certain levels of government or within the city at large at Easthampton. And so that's something that I'm also going to be taking very seriously.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that answer. I really appreciate it.
Any other councilors? Councilor Zarek.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here, Felicia. I really appreciate you stepping up into this role. I think, as has been said, I think by everyone here, not only are there, well, semi-big shoes to fill. I don't know exactly what Rep. Gomez's shoe size is, but he served this city honestly and extremely well, and as president for 2 terms. But we are all our own people, and as he leaves his own legacy, so too is an opportunity for you to create your own. But that's also to say that you're the only one who applied. And I think that also, it speaks to a lot of things, right? It speaks to kind of a reticence to participate in public service, but it also speaks to your own courage and willingness to participate in that process as well. And I'm very grateful for it. Your CV speaks for itself. Clearly you have multiple skills and experience that is going to only serve to strengthen this council and the city. And then your actual municipal CV, the work that you've done here in the city, volunteering and actually proving that you're not only capable, not is the word that comes to mind, but you've made such an impact in your time on the committees you've been in, as well as with Porch Fest. My question's somewhat similar to Councilor Riley's, so we didn't rehearse this, but you know, as he said, participating in any environment, work environment or otherwise, is complicated. You interact with a lot of different personalities, and inevitably there's personal conflicts, there's professional conflicts, there's personal and professional conflicts, there's personally professional conflicts, but elected service like this is even more complicated because you're basically thrown into a dynamic that sometimes almost feels like a reality show, right? Tune in every Wednesday as the voters of Easthampton has placed 9 city councilors to deliberate on the matters of the city. And so here we are, and things get messy sometimes. The work that we do sometimes can seem tense just because we literally deliberate all the time. But we're at our best when all 9 of us are finding ways to fire on all cylinders and we're all working together. And that's optimally what we want to see from our council, regardless of any disagreements, personal, professional, or otherwise. When I think about, and I don't have a crystal ball, but what is likely to happen here is that you're going to take an oath of office. And in that oath of office, there's 2 words that always strike me when I hear them. It's faithfully and impartially, right? Okay, good, I got that right. And so how would you feel that you will honor that oath and those specific words, faithfully and impartially, in your work for the city council, for the city, and how you engage with both constituents and other stakeholders?
What I can promise is that should I take this oath, I will be someone who is going to be very engaged. For anyone who served on a committee with me in Easthampton or elsewhere, or as my husband can tell you, one of my, I don't necessarily want to call it a failing, but one of my traits is that I just can't help myself from sharing my opinions, and I have a lot of them. And so I'm going to be showing up and doing as much as I can to serve this city. While I've only been in Easthampton for 3.5 years, this is the place where we've chosen to settle down and put roots into. And so I'm really a big believer that if you want to live a certain way or have your community look a certain way or feel a certain way, then you have a duty to be part of that, and you shouldn't just expect it to happen organically without any kind of involvement. And so that's how I think about that faithful aspect of that first word. In terms of the impartial nature, also, that is something where, you know, of course, I have my own personal beliefs and values, and I'll be bringing them into this work. And this is about relationship building. And it's about also understanding where people are coming from, especially when they have a different opinion than I will or that we will, and when we disagree. And those are the moments that in my work and in my personal life are always moments, as I call it, of curiosity. Where is this disagreement coming from? Where is their resistance coming from? Why? What is going on underneath? And there's always a story to be told underneath that. And so I'm going to transfer that practice that I have in terms of the work that I do on a daily basis into this work for city council, because being a city councilor, in my opinion, and feel free to correct me if I misunderstand anything, but being a city councilor is about serving everyone within the city, not just the people who I like or who I agree with or who are my immediate neighbors or who I have friendships with. And so that's going to be a really critical role as part of this job, and that's something that I also take very seriously as well.
Thank you.
Any other counselors? Counselor Kwasinski.
I want to thank you for stepping up. What struck me most recently is your talk about working with people who you may agree with, not agree with, be alike, or find similarities, or those who are totally opposite you. It is very fascinating to find people who enjoy getting into the thick of things with people of all types. You'll find that here if you reach out, I think. Can you elaborate just a little bit more about maybe some of your experiences on that subject?
In terms of building a connection?
In terms of building relationships with people who aren't like you, who don't share your values, who don't share your concerns, because you will be the representative of everyone in Precinct 2, should we vote for you. And I think it's going that way.
Absolutely. So as I mentioned already, my work has been as a DEI practitioner for the past 10 plus years. That's been my sole focus. And especially in the last, as I said, 4 or 5 years or so, transparently, the work that I do is training, consulting, and especially 2020 onwards, a lot of it was mandatory DEI trainings with people who did not want to be there. And so sometimes these were people who didn't share values. Sometimes these were people who didn't agree that certain inequities that I believe exist. There were people who didn't just want to, listen to talk about these subjects. And so, again, that's where a lot of this experience of mine comes from, because even though, again, there may be conflict or disagreement, I still fundamentally believe that at the end of the day, we're all human beings together. And so there's a connection point around our shared humanity. And I've told folks that moving into Easthampton was interesting because I'm part of a new wave of people joining the city. And there's a lot of feelings around that. There can be big feelings around that. And on the street that I live on, there's been all sorts of folks who, some have lived there for many years, some have lived there for shorter amounts of time than I have. And some of it is just understanding where are those points that we can agree on, even if it's a very, very minor point, like the sun is shining today. You have to start somewhere, because that's how you're going to build that relationship and build that connection. And we can still leave at the end of the day and disagree with the majority of what the other person believes in, but it's about not shying away from having those conversations to begin with. And I find that a lot of times in my personal and professional experience, where the breakdown occurs is when people are scared or avoidant or nervous or just unwilling to lean into discomfort, because discomfort feels all sorts of certain ways to folks. And so for me, yes, I have a lot of experience with leaning into discomfort. Does it mean that I love it? Not necessarily, but it means that I know that I'll be okay, but it's important to do that work anyway.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Counselor.
Good evening. I'd like to say thank you again, like my colleague said, for your willingness and obvious enthusiasm for this potential opportunity. I just have a question. How do you see yourself positively impacting the community, both in the short term and the long term, as a city councilor?
I think that it's important, again, to have representation. So I think from that standpoint, that's a positive impact I hope will be present for the community. So I come as a potential city councilor who is a woman, I'm a woman of color, and I'm also disabled. And I think that those identities are important to show community members, because as I forget who it was who mentioned it earlier, but someone mentioned there wasn't any other folks applying for this role, right? And I know that for a lot of city councilors, you ran unopposed in the last election. And I think that it's always good to have choices, and people should be engaged. It's challenging when we have a small community like Easthampton, which is only a little over 16,000 people, because that's a lot to ask for from a small population. But I'm hoping to show people that they might be able to do this too, where maybe they hadn't thought about this before. My wish would be, if I choose to run in the fall, my wish would be to not run unopposed. That would be my greatest wish. Other aspects in terms of a positive impact, again, I'm really hopeful that I can show folks that Easthampton is open to the kinds of values that I espouse and that this is going to be part of that conversation. And so again, having already been really involved in the community, just an extension of that and showing that this city is special. There's a lot of opportunities ahead of us and that there's a lot of interesting, good, exciting things ahead. And my hope is to bring as many people along into that conversation as possible.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, so before I entertain a motion, I just want, one thing that keeps, I don't have a question for you, but one thing that keeps kind of coming back to me is that we got lucky. I think like hearing you speak and hearing the skills that you are bringing to this position, I think that we got lucky. And so I really hope that this experience is a positive one for you and that you don't hate it at the end.
I hope so too.
But if you do, then, you know, that's sometimes that's how it works. I hope you love it, actually. Saying that, I would love for someone to make a motion.
I move to nominate Felicia Yadzik to the position of Precinct 2 City Councilor.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? And we have to do a roll call because Councilor Riley is on here. Councilor Zarek.
I just want to amend the motion to make sure that the council appropriately learns how to pronounce the applicant's name going forward.
Felicia.
Yes.
Yes. So noted.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion? Yeah, Councilor Denham.
Same thing, I just appreciate you stepping up. I think it's a big deal to want to be a part of the democratic process. And I think it's also really important for someone who wants to step up and be a representative for their community, particularly when it's as diverse as it is. And so I really commend you for taking that step and being so willing to be a voice for your community.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no more discussion, Barbara.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
JP Kaczynski.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Enthusiastically aye.
Tamara Smith.
Aye.
JT Terrell.
Aye.
Owen Zarek.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously, and so here comes the fun part. This is where you win.
But I don't have to say your name quite yet. All right, raise your right hand. I state your name, do solemnly swear
I, Felicia Jazak, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform all duties
discharge and perform all duties
incumbent upon me
incumbent upon me
as Precinct Number 2 City Councilor
as Precinct Number 2 City Councilor,
according to the best of my knowledge and abilities,
according to the best of my knowledge and abilities,
agreeably to the rules and regulations
agreeably to the rules and regulations
of the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
and the City of Easthampton.
and the City of Easthampton.
After, because we still have to talk about reorganization.
Oh, okay.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations. So we have.
No,
You're sitting up here now.
Join us.
Yeah. And we do have one other item on our agenda, which is a discussion about the council reorganization. So I just wanted to let everybody know that we received, for the position of vice president, we received 3 letters of interest. And so that means that when we do our vote at our next meeting, which will be 1 week from tonight, it will be ranked choice. And the way that will work is we'll have a paper ballot where we indicate our ranking, and then we will state that for the record, and we will do the calculations to see who is going to be the next vice president. We didn't receive any letters of application for president, so, but we will still have a vote for president at our next meeting as well. And with me potentially being the only applicant. Does anybody have any questions about this process? And I will, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Brad, go ahead. Counselor Riley, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. President. So just a point of clarification for that process. Will we be able to ask questions of the applicants, or will we just be voting? Like, should we have these conversations outside of the meeting, or will it be able to occur publicly?
That's a good question. I haven't thought of that. I was expecting it probably to happen outside of the meeting, and just have the meeting be for the vote, just to expedite the process.
Okay.
But if counselors would like that to be part of the process, I'm open to that as well. So
I'm indifferent either way. I just wanted to know when I should be asking these questions. So I will defer to the opinions of the council. Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody else have any thoughts on the reorganization? So as far as timing, I think it could potentially take a little bit so we might need to meet earlier on next Wednesday. And you can't?
I can't.
Okay. So I'm just curious, I don't want to bump up against our public hearing because we have public hearings at 6:15, and I don't necessarily know that we'd be able to complete this process in that time. But Councilor Denham, do you have a?
Yeah, so as this is an item on our agenda, if someone speaks to 4 people, that's a violation of open meeting law. So it seems to me that questions should happen at the meeting.
Fair enough.
I'm just,
Sure.
just to make sure we're not violating open meeting law.
Yep. Okay, yeah, Tom, Councilor Peak?
One challenge, we do have a finance meeting just before.
Just before.
So, well, at 5:30, so that does.
Well, I think potentially what we could do is just adjourn the meeting at 6, have this be the first item that we deal with, and if we're not finished with it, we can pause it, do our public hearing, and then return to it after it's done. Does anybody have any issues with that? That way we can avoid any conflicts with prior meetings or work schedules?
You're saying postpone or put on hold the finance meeting?
No, the finance meeting would go on as scheduled at 5:30. We would adjourn at 6 p.m., have this be the first item on the agenda. And so
Would adjourn.
Start at 6.
Start at 6.
Regular.
Yeah, start at 6, have this be the first item on the agenda. If people have questions for candidates, which it sounds like Councilor Denham thinks is appropriate to have, then maybe we can do that for the first 15 minutes. And if that doesn't take 15 minutes, maybe we can get into the voting. But if it does bump up against a public hearing, we can just pause and return to it after the public hearing.
Works for me.
Typically, we'd have public speak before the meeting.
Right.
Right, good. And so keep the regular agenda.
Keep the regular and then have that be the first item.
Have the first item, okay.
I see what you're saying.
Yep.
Right after roll call.
Right after roll call. Yep. And so everything else would get bumped down. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. And I think, this could potentially take a little while, so it might be something that as we get into it, we'll see right away that we're not going to be able to get it before the public hearing. So we'll have an idea and we can pause it and move through our items and then unpause it as we get out of the public hearing. Sure. I think that should give us plenty of time. Okay. Any other thoughts on this? Okay, seeing none. I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, no, roll call. Sorry.
Sam Derby?
Aye.
JP Kaczynski?
Aye.
Tom Peak?
Aye.
Brad Riley?
Aye.
Tamara Smith?
Aye.
JT Terrell?
Aye.
Owen Zarrett?
Aye.
Connie Dunn?
Oh, yeah.
sorry.
Mr. Johnson.
Say it.
Now she's got to get the
Alicia
name right.
Johnson.
Aye.
Hey, there we go.
Yay.
Hey. Congratulations. We're gonna adjourn. Okay, Okay, thank you. See you
Everybody.
next week. Yep.
Brad.